Welcome, friends. I'm sitting here today with VA's Executive Director, Miki Stricker-Talbot. We released a joint article with ABNN, that is the Alberta Nonprofit Network, to talk about our joint project, the Dignified Retirement Research Project. I don't want to go yet into too much detail because that's precisely why we're here today, to chat about our project some more and dive into some questions that can bring this topic to light in a more accessible and friendly way for our audience and members. My name is Andrés Alvarez, and I'm the Research and Knowledge Mobilization Specialist here at VA. Welcome, Miki. Thank you so
Thank
much
you,
for
Anne.
being here.
Lovely to be here.
I want to jump in right to the questions, if that's okay with you.
Let's do it.
Keep it friendly for folks out there. Can you provide a little bit more context on the conversations held in 2024? Because I understand that this is a big piece of how we decided to start this research project. So in 2024, there were some conversations with ABNN and the government of Alberta. And I know that a lot of issues surfaced and a lot of ideas too. But what, aside from pensions, were some of the topics that surfaced?
Yeah, so back in 2024, the Alberta Nonprofit Network, in collaboration and partnership with the Government of Alberta's Ministry of Arts, Culture and Status of Women, convened several sector gatherings in person and online to really dig into the topic of the nonprofit workforce and some of the challenges, opportunities, and trends that folks were seeing at the time. There were a number of key themes that arose during those gatherings, including things like awareness of the sector. The sector does struggle with visibility and public awareness of its value. There's also a lack of workforce supports and structures to support workforce development. There were concerns raised about volunteerism and the dwindling number of people in the province who are showing up to volunteer in formal ways. There was conversation about the employee experience and challenges with burnout, mental health challenges, and a lack of career paths that impact employee satisfaction and retention. And the concept of total compensation. Nonprofit and voluntary sector jobs often lack competitive pay, benefits, and stability, making it harder to attract and retain talent. So those were some of the things that came up during the conversation.
I'm sure this is going to be really helpful paired with the article that we're putting out together so that people can have the full panorama of why this matters so much to us, right?
Mhm.
Um, so keeping on the same path, why now and why pensions from all these issues that we are just talking about? Um, can this focus on pensions also mitigate some of the other topics that surface, some of those other issues?
Mhm. Ah, I mean, during those conversations in 2024, pensions came forward as one of the most tangible, actionable solutions from those broader workforce conversations. But what's so interesting to me, Andy, is like for me, these conversations have been the same conversations for the last 20 years since I last worked in the sector for the first time. And so I think the time is now because we keep having these same conversations and concerns about burnout, retention, lack of career pathways. It's all connected to instability. And when people don't see a long term future for themselves in the sector, it affects everything, whether they stay, whether they grow in their jobs, whether they'll invest their careers in the sector. And so pensions are interesting because while it's not a silver bullet, it's not going to solve everything, but they do signal a sense of stability and a long-term commitment from an employer to an employee. They're part of what we would call a total compensation, and right now that's one of the biggest gaps between the nonprofit sector and other sectors in the workforce. Um, so this isn't about pensions in isolation, but it's about strengthening the overall employee value proposition for folks who work in the sector. Um, I mean, I believe ABNN believes that if we get this right, it could directly support retention, recruitment, and even perception of the sector as a viable long-term career.
Thank you, Miki, so much for putting this in perspective. I can definitely see how, in the bigger picture, it does, um, if not mitigate per se all the other issues, it does overall create this holistic approach for people to have, yes, more completeness within what the sector can offer, and to support both the employees, but also the people that we service, right,
Hmm.
in a better way. I do want to talk about this word dignified. It's something that, in my personal experience, kind of is what ignites the fire that makes me so passionate about this project. But I want to know what it means to you, and also I was wondering if the current landscape or allowing or not allowing for people to have a dignified retirement.
Yeah. Oh, I love this question. So, in the context of retirement, like for me, the concept of dignified is about having security and choice at the end of your career. It means that the people who spend decades contributing to their communities aren't left uncertain about their own futures. There's also a values piece. Like nonprofit work is fundamentally about dignity for others, and so it raises the question: Are we extending that same dignity to the people who are doing the work?
Right.
Like right now, many people in the sector are relying on personal savings alone or patchwork solutions that create inequity. It can mean for them that they need to delay retirement or they need to leave the sector earlier than they want to. Um, I mean, it's important to notice that I don't think that dignity is completely absent in the sector, but it is inconsistent, and it's not something that folks can necessarily rely on. So for me, this project is about making dignity something that's built into the system and not left to chance. Ultimately, we want to ensure that we're not perpetuating a system in the sector where the very people who offered social supports to alleviate poverty throughout their careers are needing to access those very same services when they retire.
Yeah.
What does it mean to you? I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
I mean, I echo what you say. I agree. I think when we talk about dignity in retirement, it really comes down to peace of mind and independence. And by independence, I don't mean like isolation. You know, I'm very Latino about how I perceive independence. Um, but it means that your pension is seamlessly accessible at the end, that you don't have to jump through endless bureaucratic hoops, that the money is there when you need it and that it's enough. More than that, I think that it means security. It
Mhm.
means that we are ensuring that seniors don't have to rely on food banks just to survive and that they can comfortably cover basic living costs, like whether it's a rent or mortgage. I think for many people, it would also be about family. Like dignity would mean to be able to support your children and leave something behind for the next generation, or like instead of passing away like the burden of poverty to your loved ones and this financial burden at the end, right? So I think dignified retirement is just to consolidate it in all my thoughts, because I have many: safety, legacy, and respect.
Mhm.
But I do agree very much with you that it's also about the sustainability aspect, because if we keep on this loop in which we serve people who right now don't have access to that independence and that full dignity, and then we end up getting to that same point, it means that overall the structure of the sector is not sustainable
Mhm.
in the long
Mhm.
run. So if and I know that everything that we do is to help, but if we cannot have access to other things that would assist with the systemic design, with the systemic imbalances, in the end, no matter how much effort we put into providing all these services and accesses and all the care we put into this work, we're just going to keep cycling back. And the
Mhm.
point should be to step out of it at some point.
Mhm.
I don't know. I believe that it should be the end game.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing those thoughts, Andrew.
Um, okay. So for my next question, what was one or some of the most surprising findings from the research that we conducted from phase one?
Mm.
Or maybe to you, it wasn't surprising, because I know that we've talked about this even before we started, and there had been previous efforts to make this a reality. Um, was it a confirmation? Like,
Mm.
what was it that was kind of like aha from what was said in 2024 compared to the results that we got from our surveys in phase one?
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the most striking things was actually the level of alignment across the sector. Um, because we did two different surveys. We did one for employees and we did one for organizational leaders. And both cohorts saw this as a real gap and both expressed interest in solutions. Sometimes when you survey employees and you survey leaders, you can expect a tension there between what employees want and what organizations feel that they can offer. But here there was a shared recognition that we need some kind of solution that works for everybody. Another key finding, which might not have been surprising, but helpful to understand more deeply, was just how widespread the lack of access to a defined benefit pension plan is, and savings in general for retirement. Um, it's not a niche issue, it's systemic across the sector. And at the same time, the research also highlighted the very real barriers around cost and complexity. So it reinforced why a collective solution might be necessary.
What are your hopes for phase two? Like,
Mm.
as a caveat, I want the audience to know that the goal for this phase two is to either build a suitable plan or recommend one that if there's something already available that can work for the sector, maybe if we slightly modify it to fit. But what would be, in your opinion, an ideal outcome?
Yeah. So for me, at the highest level, success would be having a clear, viable path forward for supporting dignified retirement for more sector employees than we have today. So that could mean, as you said, designing something new or identifying an existing model that fits, but it has to work in practice. Being realistic, we're not going to be able to design a solution that works for everybody in the sector because the sector and its various types of organizations are so broad and complex, and so we can't offer a one size fit all solution. But what I do hope is that we can design and offer a solution that will make a dignified retirement more possible for more people than we have today. It needs to be sustainable financially and manageable administratively. And from an employee perspective, it needs to meaningfully feel like it genuinely improves their long-time financial stability. Listen, I know that the sector has been talking about a dignified retirement options for literally generations. For me, success will be moving on from we know this is a problem to here's a real solution that we can act on.
That ties back to what we were saying about this dignity aspect. It's about choice,
Mm.
ultimately. How about you, Miki? Do you have any questions for me since I've been an active part of this project too? Something
Yeah.
that you're curious about?
Yeah, so Andy, like in phase one, something that I know that you wanted to experiment with in order to try to make this whole topic around pensions less scary, more approachable, was to use humor in order to try to communicate. So,
Hmm.
can you share a little bit about your thinking there and how it's been helpful and why you thought that this was a good approach to take with pensions, which are notoriously like overwhelming and oblique for a lot of people.
Of course, I love this question. I am gonna fully disclose that I'm an elder millennial. So through crisis, the way we cope with a lot of things that are a little uncomfortable out there is through humor. I'm not alone in that. I believe fundamentally, and I have a background in advertising, and marketing too, including with social media. And I've seen over and over again that humor as a tool helps us lower like our immediate defenses, especially when
Mhm.
something feels foreign or dry. I mean, it did it to me. I'm not a finance guy. And when I heard we're going to do pension research, I was like, I'm not a finance guy. Like I
But we're
immediately
looking for
kind
a
of
man in finance.
like, yeah. And I'm not 6'5" or all that. I don't have trust fund either. So the way I made sense of it and I connected to it was being very raw and open and vulnerable about where I stand
Mm,
as someone who works for the sector at my age, with my intersections. How am I gonna retire? Have I thought this through, or am I just hoping for this asteroid to like exterminate us? Because I know I'm not alone with the millennials. We keep like putting our pleads out there for this to happen. So I just took from that same humor, and I was like, okay, it helped me bypass the initial discomfort around the subject. And I do think that it functions as a bridge to empathy. So when things are
mhm.
hard, if we laugh at our misery together, then it feels lighter. What? I
Yes.
what? I
Yes.
don't
Okay.
I don't want to risk though falling into the trap of not being serious about this either. Not long ago, I read this article that a colleague sent to me about like how we should stop making jokes about not being able to retire, and it was very candid. And I have to say, like, humor is a good starting point. Like comedians, stand-up comedians use it when they're gonna just like lay down a very uncomfortable truth about politics or something like that, and they open very nicely so people are like, "Oh, hello." And then it hits you, right? But there does need to be a conversation afterwards, and there's a point where we do need to stop laughing about it and actually commit to doing something and take it seriously. So it was helpful to get engagement so that people would let us know where were they standing. Like for the surveys, I think we did great and people actually uh engaged through our post. We tried to also um make it so broad that like other generations with different styles of humor, different like intergenerational jokes could understand. And we got a lot of people for the survey sample. So
Oh, humor.
now we stop joking about it. Now we get
I mean, humor is such a great way to break the ice and to get people comfortable with, as you said, like admitting what they might not know and what they might have questions or curiosities about. And so being able, for me, being able to open up that space for dialogue through humor, this is the way, to quote the Mandalorian.
we're nearing the end. So what would you like people to know and how can our listeners today react or act to help us make this a reality?
Hmm. Well, I mean, at this point, I just like, I want folks to know that there's a lot of work happening behind the scenes on this, and like it's very real, and we're actively moving things forward. And so this is one of those exciting thing coming soon moments. Uh, for what I hope people will feel hopeful and curious and connected to what's coming next, even if they're not directly involved yet. Because the more collective interest and excitement around it, the easier it becomes to turn this into something real and lasting. Um, and so if this was a social media post, this would be the moment I'd say, smash that like button and subscribe. So like, stay tuned because we'll be sharing more in the coming months as the work continues.
Yes. Stay
Thanks
tuned.
so much.
Thank you
Thanks
so
for the
much,
chat.
Miki.
Thank you.
See you.